Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at a lecture by Ali Akbar Rafipour.
Oh, yeah, Rafipour. He's an Iranian scholar with a really unique style.
Yeah, and this lecture in particular is about Ghadir.
That's a pretty big deal in Islamic history, right?
Absolutely, especially for Shia Muslims. It's kind of a foundational event.
Definitely. And Rafipour uses it to talk about some really interesting things, like the role of imams and the idea of divine guidance.
Right. So before we jump into all of that,
Sure.
can you give us some context?
Of course. So Ghadir.
Like what exactly happened there?
Okay, so picture this. It's 632 CE,
Okay.
and the Prophet Muhammad is on his final pilgrimage to Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
On his way back to Medina, he stops at this place called Ghadir.
Ghadir.
Yeah, it was like a crossroads where people were heading back to different parts of Arabia.
Oh, so like a major gathering point.
Exactly. Huge crowds.
Wow.
Historical accounts say over 30,000 people were there.
That's incredible.
It was a big deal.
So in this setting, the Prophet delivers a sermon.
Yeah, a sermon that would have a huge impact on the future of Islam.
Rafipour seems to really emphasize just how many people were there.
Right. It wasn't just some small gathering.
Like this was a deliberate message.
Definitely. So what did the Prophet say in this sermon?
That's what I want to know.
Well, he made a really significant statement about Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Okay, Ali, his cousin and son-in-law, right?
Exactly. That's the one. So the Prophet declares, "For whomever I am a master,
Okay.
Ali is also their master."
And the word for master in Arabic,
Aula.
maula,
Yeah.
right? It can also mean leader or guide.
Exactly. It's a loaded term.
So this wasn't just about the Prophet saying he liked Ali.
No, this was about leadership within the Muslim community.
Right. And Rafipour uses this event to talk about divine guidance.
He suggests that appointing Ali meant humanity would always have a guide, even after the Prophet passed away.
It raises the question, though,
What's
how do different Islamic schools of thought interpret this concept of Maula?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why has it caused so much debate?
Well, Shia Muslims believe this event marked Ali as the rightful successor to the Prophet.
Right, the first in the line of 12 imams.
Exactly. But other interpretations exist within Islam.
Oh, I see.
And the exact nature of Ali's authority as Mawla is still being discussed today.
Okay, so we've got this major event at Ghadir. A declaration about Ali and this discussion about divine guidance.
Right.
But what I found interesting was how Rafipour starts his lecture.
What do you mean?
He doesn't actually begin with the event itself.
Huh.
He starts by talking about the different Arabic words for fire and hellfire.
Oh, yeah. That's a bit unexpected.
Why do you think he chooses that as a starting point?
Well, Rafipour is known for making these interesting connections between seemingly unrelated topics.
Right, it makes you think.
Exactly.
So why hellfire?
I think he's using it to highlight the Quran's emphasis on the afterlife
Okay.
and the consequences of our actions in this life.
It's a powerful way to start a lecture.
It definitely grabs your attention.
It's like he's saying, listen up, folks. This stuff matters.
Haha, right.
Your actions have real consequences.
Exactly. He even connects the severity of hellfire to the intensity of a person's actions.
A pretty vivid analogy.
Definitely memorable.
So he starts with this discussion of hellfire to really drive home the importance of the Prophet's message at Ghadir.
Right. It's about choosing the right path. The path of divine guidance.
Okay, but here's where things get really interesting.
Oh.
He doesn't stop at just the theological implications of hellfire.
He goes deeper.
Yeah, he actually explores the origins of words like devil and hell.
Interesting.
And he even connects them to ancient Persian beliefs.
Wow. That seems like a big jump.
It does, doesn't it?
What's the connection there?
Well, Rafipour is highlighting the interconnectedness of cultures and religions.
Okay.
He suggests that tracing the roots of religious terms can give us a deeper understanding
Interesting.
of their meanings
Okay.
and how they've evolved over time.
So he's not just looking at Islam in isolation?
No, he's showing how these ideas connect to broader historical and linguistic trends.
Makes sense.
It's like he's peeling back layers of history and language.
To reveal unexpected connections.
Exactly. And he even challenges some common narratives about Islamic teachings,
Right.
especially about Ghadir. He gets pretty frustrated with what he sees as misinterpretations.
Like what kind of misinterpretations?
Well, for example, he takes issue with the idea that the Prophet only asked people to love Ali
Okay.
and not necessarily follow him as a leader.
Ah.
He uses historical and linguistic analysis to argue for a much stronger interpretation of the event.
So he's pushing back against any attempts to downplay the significance of Ghadir.
Yeah, he wants people to really understand the full weight of what happened that day.
It's not just about blind faith.
Right. It's about informed understanding.
I like that.
One thing I found really insightful was how Raifapur brings in the lineages of the Imams,
Oh, yeah.
specifically highlighting the diverse backgrounds of their mothers.
Why do you think he emphasizes that?
I think he's challenging any notion of racial or ethnic exclusivity within Islam.
That makes sense.
By pointing out the diverse lineage of the Imams, he's emphasizing the universality of Islam's message. It's a message that transcends boundaries of race, language, and culture.
It's a really important point, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. Where issues of identity and belonging are so often at the forefront.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that true leadership and guidance are based on principles and values.
Not on superficial characteristics.
Exactly. And speaking of relevance, Raifapur doesn't shy away from connecting these historical teachings
To contemporary events.
Yes. He uses examples like the Syrian conflict and Israel's policies to illustrate how Islamic teachings are still relevant for navigating political and social challenges today.
He's making a strong argument that understanding Islamic history
And the concept of divinely appointed leadership
is crucial for understanding current events.
and the challenges facing the Muslim world today.
It's not just an academic exercise.
No, he's showing how these teachings can inform our understanding of the world.
Really interesting.
So he's saying that these teachings are not just ancient words
But a living framework.
for approaching the problems of today.
I see that.
This has been a really thought-provoking discussion so far.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
from hellfire to the complexities of interpreting a single word like Mu'awala.
Right.
Before we dive into the next part of this deep dive,
Okay.
what stands out to you most from Raifapur's lecture?
What resonates with me the most is how he weaves together all these seemingly different ideas.
Yeah, like hellfire and leadership and linguistic analysis.
Exactly. And he does it so skillfully.
It's really a compelling narrative.
It is.
He challenges us to think critically
Yes.
and connect the dots between history, language, and our own lives.
Absolutely.
And I think for our listeners, it's a great reminder that knowledge isn't just about accumulating facts.
Right.
It's about making connections, questioning assumptions, and seeing the world through new lenses.
Exactly.
And understanding that even a single event like Ghadir
Right.
can have ripple effects that extend far beyond its historical context.
And those ripple effects continue to this day.
They do.
That's what we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be delving deeper into the implications of Ghadir and its significance for understanding the concept of the awaited Imam Mahdi.
I'm looking forward to it.
So we're back and ready to dive deeper into Raifapur's lecture.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so remember Ghadir Khumm.
Right, that pivotal event.
Exactly. It's fascinating how much discussion and debate a single event like this can generate.
You know, it's true. History is rarely straightforward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There are always multiple perspectives.
Especially with events that happened centuries ago.
Right. But Raifapur seems pretty confident in his interpretation,
Yeah, he does. He really dives into the details.
focusing on the prophet's actions and his words.
He even points out that the prophet had a platform built.
Using camel saddle?
Yeah, so he could address the massive crowd.
It seems like he wanted to make sure his message was heard.
Loud and clear.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. What stands out to you about the language?
The language the prophet used.
Yeah, in the sermon.
Well, Raifapur highlights the power of the language.
Oh.
It wasn't just about conveying information.
It was about moving people.
Exactly. He even quotes the prophet asking the crowd,
Oh yeah, I remember this part.
"Do I not have more right over the believers than they have over themselves?"
And the response was a resounding yes.
Yes, indeed, a messenger of God.
Powerful stuff. It's like a call and response
Reinforcing that connection.
between the prophet and his community.
Right. But then it goes even further.
What happens next?
That's when he delivers the declaration about Ali,
Right, making him the guardian of the believers.
the Mala.
There's that word again.
It's central to this whole event.
And Raifapur doesn't just present these details.
No, he analyzes them
He draws out the deeper implications.
for Islamic leadership and guidance.
What's his main argument here?
He's saying that the prophet's actions at Ghadir Khumm were all about ensuring continuity
Of what?
of divine guidance for the Muslim community
It's like he was setting up a system
and a system of leadership
to protect the message of Islam.
to preserve it.
Like laying the foundation for a building
You need that solid base.
to support everything that comes after.
And in this case, that foundation,
It's rooted in divinely appointed leadership
starting with Ali,
and continuing through the 12 imams.
Exactly.
And then Rai 4 connects Ghadir Qum
To what?
to contemporary events,
He does.
suggesting that many of the challenges facing the Muslim world today stem from a lack of unity
And leadership.
rooted in those principles.
He's got a point.
He even points to conflicts in the Middle East,
Oh, yeah.
arguing that they're a consequence of not heeding the lessons of Ghadir Qum.
It's a sobering thought.
History isn't just something we read about in books.
It has real-world implications.
It affects our lives
He's emphasizing the importance of understanding these teachings.
and applying them in our own time.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the concept of the awaited Imam Mahdi,
The 12th Imam.
the final Imam in Shia Islam.
Raifapur directly connects Ghadir Qum to this belief.
He does.
How so?
He explains that appointing Ali as the first Imam,
Sets the stage for the Mahdi's return.
who will bring justice and peace.
So Ghadir Qum isn't just a historical event.
It's a prophecy about the future.
This idea of an awaited savior,
It's a powerful concept.
found in many religions,
It has shaped human history
inspiring hope.
for a better world.
But it also raises questions.
It does.
Like, what does the concept of an awaited savior mean to you personally?
Yeah.
How does it shape your understanding of the world?
And your role in it.
These are the kinds of questions that Raifapur's lecture makes us think about.
He challenges us to engage with these complex topics.
To think critically about history, religion, leadership.
He reminds us that religious teachings aren't just about blind faith
It's about seeking understanding.
and applying those principles to make a difference.
We've explored a lot so far.
We have
Raifapur's interpretation of Ghadir Qum.
divine guidance, Islamic leadership, the Mahdi.
But we also need to acknowledge
That not everyone agrees with this interpretation.
there are other perspectives.
And that's what we'll explore in the next part.
Right, we'll look at some of the alternative viewpoints
And criticisms.
surrounding Ghadir Qum.
It's all part of the deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. As promised, we're going to take a look at some of the alternative viewpoints and criticisms surrounding Ghadir Qum.
Right. We want to make sure we're considering all sides of this discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a deep dive without exploring those different perspectives.
Absolutely.
So one of the main sticking points seems to be the word mala, which, as we've discussed, the Prophet used when referring to Ali.
Yeah.
Raifapur interprets it as a clear designation of leadership.
Right. Succession.
But how do other scholars understand this term?
Well, some argue that Malala can have multiple meanings.
Like what?
It could mean friend, protector, helper.
So it's not always about political authority.
Right. They suggest it could indicate a close bond
Okay.
or spiritual guidance.
So in their view,
Yeah.
the Prophet might have been emphasizing Ali's importance to the community, but not necessarily naming him as his successor.
That's one interpretation.
It does seem like a crucial matter to leave open to interpretation,
You'd think so, right?
especially when a clear leader was needed.
Yeah, especially at such a critical time.
What about historical accounts that differ from the Shia narrative?
Oh, you mean versions of events that don't quite match up?
Yeah. Are there any?
Definitely. There are sources that downplay the significance of Ghadir Qum.
Oh, really?
Some even portray it as a minor event.
Not the grand declaration that Raifapur describes.
Right.
So how does he address these alternative accounts?
Well, he acknowledges them.
Does he just dismiss them?
No, he actually encourages us to look at them critically. Consider their sources and any potential biases.
Makes sense. History is rarely black and white,
You got it. There are always different perspectives.
and agendas that shape how events are remembered.
It's important to keep that in mind.
So we've gone deep into Ghadir Qum,
We have.
explored the historical context of theological implications, different interpretations.
This is kind of journey.
What would you say is the takeaway for our listeners?
That's a good question.
Why should we care about this event centuries later?
I think the key takeaway is that history matters.
It does. It shapes our understanding of the world.
And even a single event like Ghadir Qum
Right.
can have these ripple effects that we're still feeling today.
It's also a reminder that knowledge is a journey.
Not a destination.
We should always be open to learning and questioning.
Absolutely. Even when it challenges our beliefs.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
here's a final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
If even a single event like Ghadir Qum can spark so much debate, what does that tell us about the challenges of interpreting religious texts and historical events?
That's a deep one.
What tools and perspectives do we need to approach these topics?
With humility and respect.
And a genuine desire for understanding.
That's the key.
We encourage you to keep exploring these questions
From your own journey.
toward truth and wisdom.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Islamic history and teachings.
Until next time.
Take care.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.